Adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. Their secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46 and nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. We're going to entertain some special actions here. The chair would like to recognize the senator from the 32nd.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 6. Thank you.
Will the secretary read the caption?
Senate Bill 6 by Senators Kirkpatrick of the 32nd and others, a bill we titled Enactment Article 1 of Chapter 5 Title 42 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding correctional institutions of the state and county so as to prohibit the use of unmanned aircraft systems to deliver or attempt to deliver contraband to a place of incarceration for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 6, a bill we titled Enactment Article 1 of Chapter 5, Title 42 of the OCGA relating general provisions regarding correctional institutions of the state and counties so as to prohibit the use of unmanned aircraft systems to deliver or attempt to deliver contraband to a place of incarceration, to prohibit the use of unmanned aircraft systems to photograph any place of incarceration without permission of the warden or superintendent of such place of incarceration for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 32nd to speak to her motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. You're very familiar with this bill. It has to do with drones being used to drop contraband in our prisons and jails. This bill adds it to the list of delivery systems that are prohibited under our state law, and I'd ask for your support for the motion. Thank you.
You have no questions.
I yield.
Any other senators wish to speak to the motion? The chair hears none. The senator from the 32nd has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 6. All those in favor of the motion will vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. As a reminder, a copy of the agrees and disagrees are in your folder on your desk. On the motion, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 6. Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to SB 48.
Will the Secretary read the caption to Senate Bill 48?
Senate Bill 48 by Senator Martin of the 9th and others, a bill to be titled and enacted in Title 20 of the OCGA relating to education so as to provide for identification and support for the students in pre-garden through second grade with dyslexia for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 48, a bill to be titled and enacted in Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA relating to elementary and secondary education so as to provide for identification of support for students in kindergarten through grades 3 with characteristics of dyslexia and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today's a great day in Georgia. Today we get to begin the process of helping students all over our state who have dyslexia. This bill is going to allow us to educate teachers so they can better identify students who have characteristics of dyslexia and equip these teachers with methods to better empower our young students to unlock their true potential. I agree with the changes that worked well with the chairman of education over there in the House. Basically, the main thing they did was they extended the pilot by 1 year, and then they changed the dates of the implementation of universal screening to coincide with the ending of that pilot. So I'll yield for any questions if there are any, but I would ask for your favorable consideration on this wonderful bill.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak to the motion? Senator from the 9th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 48. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0, and the Senate has moved to agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 48. Chair recognizes the senator from the 7th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate disagree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 72.
Mr. Secretary, will you read the caption to Senate Bill 72?
Senate Bill 72 by Senator Harper of the 7th and others, a bill to be titled and enacted in Chapter 1 of Title 27 of the OCGA relating to general provisions relative to game and fish to remove a prohibition on hunting on wildlife management areas, to change the date of effective rules and regulations of the Board of Natural Resources and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 72. Bill to be titled and enacted in Chapter 1 of Title 27 of the OCGA relating to general provisions relative to game and fish so as to remove a prohibition on hunting on wildlife and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Senator from the 7th has moved that the Senate disagree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 72. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the Senate has disagreed. Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to SB 79.
Will the Secretary read the caption?
Senate Bill 79 by Senators Gooch of the 51st and others, a bill to be titled and enacted in Code Section 32675 of the OCGA relating to restrictions on outdoor advertising authorized by Code Section 32672 and 32673 and multiple message signs on the interstate system, primary highways, and other highways and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 79. Bill to be titled and enacted in Code Section 32675 of the OCGA relating to restrictions on outdoor advertising authorized by Code Sections 32672 and 32673 and multiple message signs on the interstate system, primary highways, and other highways so as to remove references to the term mechanical in relation to multiple message signs and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 51st to speak to his motion.
you, Mr. President. SB 79 was the bill we dealt with. Changed one word in a language dealing with billboards, took out the word mechanical. The only change that was made over in the House Transportation Committee was they eliminated Section 2 of the bill, which was duplicative language, and therefore changing very little, if any, in the bill itself. So if there's no questions, I'll yield the way and ask for your consideration.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 41st for a question.
Senator Yield,
I will.
does the beloved garden clubs have any position on this bill?
There's been no communication from that organization since it left here originally.
It's for Senator Further Yield.
I
But your
will.
opinion, this does not create more billboards. It really
No, sir.
fixes a definition for.
In fact, the intent of the bill, as it was introduced and still today, is to prohibit digital billboards from being located closer than 5,000 feet. The way the bill was written was to make sure that does not happen. An administrative law judge interpreted the current existing law as to that would only apply for mechanical signs that turned. Therefore, the digital signs could have been placed 500 feet apart, which none of us want, and nor do the outdoor advertisers. They don't want that as well. So I think everybody's happy with this language.
You have no more questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? The senator from the 51st has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 79. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. For what purpose does the senator from the 48th rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 6th for business inside the Capitol.
That motion is out of order until this vote is over.
That's right.
Previous question. Thank you. On the motion, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 79. For what purpose does the senator from the 48th rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to renew my motion.
Repeat your motion again. I got a short memory.
I ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 6th for business inside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 6th is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd for a motion.
Sorry, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adhere to its disagreement to the House substitute to SB 110 and that a conference committee be appointed.
Will the secretary read a caption to Senate Bill 110?
Senate Bill 110 by Senator Stones of the 23rd and others, a bill be titled and act amending Title 15 of the OCGA relating to courts, so as established the statewide business court pursuant to the Constitution of the state and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute: Senate Bill 110, a bill be titled and act amending Title 15 of the OCGA relating to courts, so as to establish the Georgia business court and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Senator from the 23rd has moved that the Senate insist on its position to the House substitute to Senate Bill 110. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the chair appoints the senators from the 18th, the 30th, and the 23rd as conferees. Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 158.
Ms. Secretary, will you please read the caption?
Senate Bill 158 by Senator Strickland of the 17th and others, a bill be titled and act amending Titles 9, 15, 16, 17, and 41 of the OCGA relating to civil practice, courts, crimes, and offenses, criminal procedure, and nuisances, respectively, so as to provide additional safeguards against protections against human trafficking and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 158. Bill be titled and act amending Titles 9, 15, 16, 17, and 41 of the OCGA relating to civil practice, courts, crimes, and offenses, criminal procedure, and nuisances, respectively, so as to provide additional additional safeguards and protections against human trafficking, to authorize defects, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. Senate Bill 158 you all voted for a couple weeks ago. This is the governor's anti-human trafficking bill. The House made a couple changes, so I'm going to point out the changes so you see them. The first is in section 1.3 of the bill, and here we just confirmed that the organization, the victim assistance organization that we're referring child victims to, will be certified by the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. The next change is in section 1.6. This is where we made it where a minor cannot be prosecuted for prostitution in our state. We had the age of 17 because that is the age of being an adult in Georgia. The House had a different version of the bill. They wanted 18. We agreed with them, and now 18 is the age we went to there. The bigger changes come in sections 1.9 and 1.10, and this is where we're trying to use our nuisance laws to go after businesses that have human trafficking occurring on the premises and are profiting from that. And the big thing we discussed is how you create a presumption of a nuisance. And what we have in section 1.9 that comes from the House version of this bill is that, one, you have a presumption of a nuisance on a property if there is a conviction or some sort of plea of guilty for sexually related charges that takes place on the property. Second, there's a presumption if you have a prosecutor that gives notice to a business owner, and we have a lot of protection here for the good actors. And so if you get 2 or more instances of sexually related charges on your property within 24 months, and then after you get notice of that, and then another incident happens within a 24-month period, we create a presumption of a nuisance at that point. The second thing that was completely new to our bill that was not in the bill we had is section 110. And section 110 deals with drug-related charges. One of the things we heard from prosecutors is that a lot of the human trafficking goes along with drug charges a lot of times as well. Places where there's a lot of drug activity also has human trafficking activity a lot of times. So we went into that same code, went into that code section, the same thing we're doing in 1.9 to create a way where there'll be a presumption of drug-related charges taking place on someone's property to allow for a nuisance claim to be made. And under that section, we have where a business owner will get notice of 3 separate instances of drug-related charges on their property within a 24-month period, and additional 3 instances within another 24-month period. At that point, once they get that notice, there'll be a presumption of a nuisance taking place on the property. And with that, Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to rise and speak to the motion? The chair hears none. The senator from the 17th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 158. All those in favor, vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 158. Chair recognizes the senator from the 13th for a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute for Senate Bill 168.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 168 by Senator Kirk of the 13th and others. The bill will be titled enactment in Chapter 26 of Title 43 of the OCGA relating to nurses so as to revise certain definitions relating to nurses to clarify requirements relating to granting authorization to holders of multi-state licenses to engage in advanced nursing practices and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute. Senate Bill 168, a bill will be titled enactment in Title 43 of the OCGA relating to professions and businesses so as to revise certain definitions relating to nurses to clarify requirements relating to granting authorization to holders of multi-state licenses to engage in advanced nursing practice, to revise provisions relating to powers of the Board of Nursing, to repeal a provision relating to the Nurse Licensure Compact, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
For what purpose does the senator from the 43rd rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to ask for unanimous consent to excuse the senator from the 22nd for business outside the Capitol.
Without objection, the senator from the 22nd is excused. Chair recognizes the senator from the 13th to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I bring you the House substitute to Senate Bill 168, and there's just a few changes in Section 2. They made it clear that if someone is participating in this compact and they move to Georgia or another state, that they're licensed in that state that they're residing in. In Section 6, it limits Schedule II drugs to 14 days, spelled out there in that part. And then in Section 7, it's just cleaning up some reporting requirements of the hospitals that will be using these nurses in the nursing compact. So, Mr. President, I'll answer any questions or I'll yield the well, and I ask for your favorable report on this.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the motion? Chair hears none. Senator from the 13th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 168. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 168. Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 183.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 183 by Senator Huffstetler of 52nd. Bill will be titled enactment in Chapter 2 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to state administration and enforcement of revenue and taxation so as to provide that each person that files or is required to file Form 1099-K with the Internal Revenue Service shall also electronically and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 183. A bill will be titled enactment in Title 48 of the OCGA relating to revenue taxation is provided that each person that files or is required to file Form 1099-K with the Internal Revenue Service shall also electronically file a copy and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate passed out two bills, 183, which requires submission of 1099-Ks, as we had voted on, and then a second bill had penalties for not filing on time. These both passed out. What the House has done has taken these two and combined them into one bill, and I would urge your favorable consideration of this vote. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak to the motion? Chair hears none. Senator from the 52nd has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 183. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 183. Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 207.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 207 by Senator Burke of the 11th and others, a bill be titled and act amend Chapter 10 to Title 49 of the OCGA relating to the Georgia Board for Physician Workforce so as to change the name of such board to the Georgia Board of Healthcare Workforce and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute to Senate Bill 207. Bill be titled and act amend Chapter 10 to Title 49 of the OCGA relating to the Georgia Board for Physician Workforce so as to change the name of such board to the Georgia Board of Healthcare Workforce and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 11th to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was the renaming of the Physician Workforce Board to the Healthcare Workforce Board, and the House made a few changes in cooperation with me on the appointments. I appreciate your support.
Any of the senators wish to speak to the motion? The chair hears none. The senator from the 11th has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 207. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 207. Chair recognizes the senator from the 53rd for a motion.
Mr. President, I'm certainly glad you called on me because nobody else is anymore, and thank you so much for that. I was missing people. I move that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 216.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
Senate Bill 216 by Senator Moles of the 53rd. Bill be titled and act amend Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to ad valorem taxation of property so as to allow local governments to accept prepayments of ad valorem taxes and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following substitute. Senate Bill 216. The bill be titled and act amend Title 48 of the OCGA relating to revenue and taxation so as to modify certain duties of tax commissioners and tax collectors, to amend Code Section 48-4-1 of the OCGA relating to procedures for sales under tax levies and executions so as to provide for locations for sales under tax levies and executions and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
The chair recognizes the lonely senator from the 53rd to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is a bill that we voted on that allows tax commission set up a payment for people who want to pay their taxes early. The House change was that for sales of property on the courthouse steps, if it's bad weather or construction on the front part of the courthouse, they can alert the people that they're going to move the sales to a different location. That's all it does. Be happy to answer any questions.
You continue to be lonely. You have no questions.
Thank you. Come see me. Have a good day.
Is your office still in room 450? Senator from the 53rd has moved that the Senate agree to the House substitute to Senate Bill 216. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the motion, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0, and the Senate has agreed to the House substitute to Senate Bill 216. Mr. Secretary, will you read the committee reports?
Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had our consideration of the following legislation instructing the board same back to the Senate for recommendation. Senate Resolution 499 do pass, and by Senator Moulton, the 53rd. And Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules has had under consideration the following legislation instructing the board same back to the Senate for recommendation. Pursuant to Senate Rule 2-1.10c, the Committee on Rules recommends the following legislation do pass by substitute. HB 68 do pass by substitute. House Bill 85 do pass by substitute. House Bill 99 do pass by substitute. And House Bill 445 do pass by substitute. So by Senator Moulton, the 53rd. That concludes the order.
Mr. Secretary, will you second readers?
Senate Resolution 499 by Senator James of the 35th, Human Trafficking, Transport in and around Metro Atlanta, implement recognizable brand, resolve the issues. That concludes the order.
Back to the calendar. Mr. Secretary, can you read the caption of House Resolution 239?
House Resolution 239 by Representative Stevens, 164th, a resolution designated the Savannah Logistics Technology Innovation Corridor as an official technology innovation corridor in Georgia and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair would like to recognize a senator from the 1st to speak to House Resolution 239.
Thank you, Mr. President. This does one simple thing. It relating to the Savannah Logistics Technology Innovation Corridor. It changes the boundary, enlarges it just minimally along I-16 and I-95. That's all it does is change the boundary. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions.
Well, thank you very much. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the resolution? Chair hears none in the previous questions ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this resolution now be adopted? Questions on the adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0. The resolution, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore adopted. The chair recognizes the majority leader. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the rules be suspended to allow the Senate to consider confirmation of the governor's appointments to various boards, commissions, and authorities.
The majority leader has asked that unanimous consent for the rules to be suspended to allow the Senate to consider confirmation of the governor's appointments to various boards, commissions, and authorities. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that the reading of the names of the governor's appointments to various boards, authorities, and commissions be dispensed with, since they have been printed and placed on the desk.
The majority leader has moved that the authorities and commissions be dispensed with, since they've been printed and placed on the desk. Is there objection? The chair hears none. The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. President, I ask for unanimous consent that one roll call suffice to confirm all appointments unless any senator designates that an appointee be removed from the list and voted on individually.
The majority leader has moved that all appointments, the majority leader has moved for unanimous consent that one roll call suffice to confirm all appointments. Is there objection? The chair hears none. We're on a roll here. Chair recognizes the majority leader.
Mr. President, I move that the governor's appointees to the various boards, commissions, and authorities be confirmed as submitted.
Majority leader has moved that the governor's appointees to the various boards, commissions, and authorities be confirmed as submitted. All those in favor vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Is that 321? That's 321, but we're waiting on the proper motion. On the confirmation of the governor's appointments, the yeas are 51, the nays are 0, and the governor's appointments are therefore confirmed. Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate agree to the House amendment to the Senate substitute to House Bill 321.
Mr. Secretary, please read the caption.
House Bill 321 by Representatives Lott of the 122nd and others, a bill be titled enactment Article 6C of Chapter 8 of Title 31 of the OCGA relating to the hospital Medicaid financing program so as to extend the sunset provision. The Senate offers the following substitute to House Bill 321. A bill be titled enactment Title 31 of the OCGA relating to health so as to provide for the posting of certain documents on hospital websites, provide for requirements, provide for definition, provide for conflicting interest transactions for members of hospital authorities to extend the sunset provision for the hospital Medicaid financing program and for other purposes. Mr. President, the House offers the following amendment. Amend HB 321, Senate substitute, by striking all matter between lines 1 and 338, inserting in lieu thereof the following to amend Title 31 of the OCGA relating to health so to provide for the posting and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th to speak to his motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 321 passed out of this chamber yesterday, a vote of 41 to 11. Went across to the House for 4 changes that were asked for over there. This was the bill that was the provider fee. It also included the hospital transparency language. 4 changes that have been made. I'll draw them out to you. Line 21, the transparency post was moved from July 1st. We gave them a little bit more time. It goes to October 1st. The 15% margin that the senator from the 11th was so helpful in helping us word has moved to a 3-year rolling average in lines 137 through 142. We deleted the term business venture foundation because it was not found elsewhere in the code. That was used to be on lines 24 through 30. We also gave a 30-day to cure period. So if the hospitals, the nonprofit hospitals, do not post their disclosed language within a requisite time, they aren't at risk of losing state funding until DCH gives them 30 days notice and 30 days to cure. If there are no questions, Mr. President, I'll yield the well and urge favorable consideration of House Bill 321 as amended by the House.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other senators wish to speak for or against the motion? The chair hears none. The senator from the 19th has moved that the Senate agree to the House amendment to the Senate substitute to House Bill 321. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. What purpose does the senator from the 11th rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the governor's office has worked with us to remove some language that we needed changed, and I'm fully supportive of this bill?
I believe the senator knows of what he speaks. On the motion, the yeas are 50, the nays are 2, and the Senate has agreed to the House amendment to the Senate substitute to House Bill 321. Mr. Secretary, will you please read the caption of House Bill 456? We're back on the rules calendar.
House Bill 456 by Representative Tankersley of the 160th and others, a bill be titled enactment Article 1 of Chapter 81 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to local government budgets and audits so as to increase the expenditure amount for which a local government may elect an annual report in lieu of a biannual audit. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 7th to speak to House Bill 456. The chair is looking for the senator from the 7th to present House Bill 456.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, House Bill 456 is a good bill. And your small cities will love you if you vote in favor of this good bill, Mr. Chairman, or Mr. President. And if there are no specific questions about the bill, I will happily yield the will.
With that presentation, you've got a couple questions. Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Senator Gill,
I'll yield.
is it not true that your bill allows cities of a very small size to waive certain requirements concerning audits that would cost them more than they probably have in income?
The gentleman from the 19th knows of which he speaks.
Chair recognizes our good friend from the 20th for a question.
Mr. Chairman, would you yield for
I'll
a
yield.
series of questions?
I'll yield.
Can you explain to me what is meant by line 26 through 28 of the bill?
If you'll give me a second, let me get a copy of it. I'll tell you.
I'm just teasing.
Okay.
You have no more. Oh, you actually have one more question.
Uh-oh.
Late to the board. Chair recognizes our good friend from the 28th district for a question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator, when's the effective date?
July 1 to the good chairman.
Just making sure.
Hey, I'm on top of it.
You have no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any of the senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous questions ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 49, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 352.
House Bill 352 by Representative Reeves of the 34th and others. A bill will be titled enactment code section 48-8-3 of the OCGA relating to exemptions from sales and use tax so as to change the sunset provision for the exemption for competitive projects of regional significance and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to House Bill 352. A bill will be titled enactment code section 48-8-3 of the OCGA relating to exemptions from sales and use tax so as to change the sunset provision for the exemption for competitive projects of regional significance and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 17th to speak to House Bill 352.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, bring to you House Bill 352. With this bill, we're extending the sunset on the sales and use tax exemptions for projects of regional significance. This is another tool that our Department of Economic Development can use to get investment from large corporations in our state that bring lots of jobs to our state and help us remain the #1 state in the country in which to do business. And with that, Mr. President, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Chair recognizes our good friend from the 48th district.
No is the answer, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Does the senator yield?
I'll yield.
On this bill, do we have any mechanism by which to measure these exemptions to make sure that we're actually gaining more than the taxpayers are investing in those exemptions?
Sure, and I know that what I was given from the department in the last 3 years since the last time we extended this sunset, there have been 4 projects that have used this exemption. And with those projects, we had $3.1 billion of investment in our state. We had over 4,000 jobs of those projects in our state, and the tax exemption was a little over $25 million. Of course, this is an exemption. We never would have had that money to start with without this investment. But with the investment we made, we got over 4,000 jobs from that, over $3 billion of investment in our state.
Does the senator further yield?
Yes.
So do you anticipate this will be a positive bill for the taxpayers and that we will continue to gain from these investments?
I do, and I appreciate you saying that. And again, this is something where we're not actually spending any of our taxpayer dollars. We're saying if you come to our state, this is something our department can use to incentivize folks to come to our state and invest here. At that point, we'll have a tax exemption that comes with that. So yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have no more questions.
I ask your favorable consideration.
Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 3. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 424.
House Bill 424 by Representatives Silcox of the 52nd and others, a bill entitled enactment Code Section 16-15-3 of the OCGA relating to definitions regarding street gang terrorism and prevention so as to include certain sex crimes into the definition of criminal gang activity and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following substitute to House Bill 424. Bill be titled enactment Title 16 of the OCGA relating to crimes and offenses so as to repeal an enhanced penalty relating to battery against a person 65 years of age or older, to revise the definition relative to the protection of disabled adults and elder persons to include certain sex crimes and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 18th to speak to House Bill 424.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, colleagues. I bring to you House Bill 424. This really comes to us on recommendations from the Elder Abuse Council and also from the Prosecuting Attorneys Council. There's about 4 or 5 different sections of relevance here. Let me run through them very quickly. Section 1 does deal with elder abuse, and in particular, last year you may remember that we made it a felony last year with regard to certain classes of abuse of the elderly. And we need to strike lines 20 through 23, which had it as a misdemeanor, so that it reconciles our statutes and there would not be a conflict there. Secondly, Section 2 revises the definition of exploit that we find in our code, again relating to elder abuse, and particularly it provides that the definition of exploit will mean, among other things, the illegal taking of resources belonging to a disabled adult or elderly person, when access to the resources was obtained due to their mental or physical incapacity. Section 3 revises definitions of criminal gang activity, specifically relating to the trafficking of people for sexual servitude. So we have revised the criminal gang activity definition that you find in the code. Section 4 are some basic revisions that come from the Prosecuting Attorneys Council asking for changes to the rape shield statute, again consistent with the previous section, added to the definition so that labor servitude and sexual servitude can be included in gang activity prosecution. And finally, some changes in the last section authorizing the use of post-certified investigators to conduct inspections of unlicensed personal care homes. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll be happy to yield the well and ask for your support.
You have no questions.
Thank you. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 472.
House Bill 472 by Representatives Reeves of the 34th and others, a bill we titled enactment Chapter 11 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to general provisions of the Juvenile Code so as to revise procedures concerning removal considerations and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Rules offers the following substitute to House Bill 472, a bill be titled enactment Chapter 11 of Title 15 of the OCGA relating to general provisions of the Juvenile Code so as to revise procedures concerning removal considerations to provide for definition, provide that the Department of Juvenile Justice staff acting as juvenile court intake officers may not make determinations concerning alleged dependent children and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th to speak to House Bill 472.
Thank you, Mr. President. I present House Bill 472, Juvenile Code Proceedings Concerning Removal Considerations. To revise the substitute, it's on Rules 19 and Reeves 34. There are no questions, and I'll yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other senators wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The question's on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? Question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 12.
House Bill 12 by Representative Williams of the 145th and others, a bill be titled and act to amend Part 15 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the OCGA, relating to miscellaneous provisions under the Quality Basic Education Act so as to require every public school to post a sign containing the toll-free telephone number operated by the Division of Family and Children's Services, the Department of Human Services, to receive reports of child abuse or neglect and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
The chair recognizes the senator from the 28th to speak to House Bill 12.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill is simple. Just requires our schools to post in all our public schools a toll-free number. This poster can be downloaded and don't have a fiscal note for the Senator of the 48th, but I did some math and it's going to come out to about 1 cent per poster for the printing. Any questions?
You have no questions.
Thank you. I yield the well.
You've answered them all. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none and the previous questions ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46 and nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 33?
House Bill 33 by Representatives Lumsden the 12th and others, a bill be titled Act to amend Code Section 1611, 129 of the OCGA, relating to weapons carry license, gun safety information, temporary renewal permit, mandamus, and verification of license so as to provide for an extension of time for the renewal of a weapons carry license or renewal license for certain service members serving on active duty outside the state and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 13th to speak to House Bill 33. The chair re-recognizes the senator from the 13th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't want the senator from the 7th to feel lonely today, so I thought I'd be a little late myself. But anyway, I'm here now, and I bring to you House Bill 33. And this is a simple bill. What it says is that if you serve in the armed forces and you have a weapons carry permit in the state of Georgia, and you're deployed and your permit expires, they expire once every 5 years, that you have 6 months from the time that you return from your deployment to renew your license without penalty. So I would ask your favorable consideration for the passage of this bill. I'll answer any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous questions ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question is on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. What purpose does the senator from the 41st rise? No. He waives. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 540.
House Bill 540 by Representative Rhodes of the 120th and others, a bill will be titled enactment code section 33-1-18 of the OCGA, relating to housing tax credit for qualified projects and rules and regulations so as to add to the list of tax categories eligible for an offset by the housing tax credit and for other purposes. Mr. President, Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 540, a bill will be titled enactment Title 33 of the OCGA, relating to insurance so as to add to the list of categories eligible for an offset by the taxing house credit to establish standards for insurers and healthcare providers with regard to payment under a health benefit plan and the provision of emergency medical services and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to House Bill 540.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill has two parts to it. The first part is from Representative Rhodes, where he was asking to add the housing tax credit against an additional form of taxation called a retaliatory tax. This is a tax where when an insurance company operates in our state and another state has a higher tax on us, then it's a retaliatory tax. And it doesn't eliminate the tax, it just lets the credit be used. The second part of this bill is what this Senate has passed out already, an out-of-network bill. Some people call it surprise billing. The House had a bill over there that did not get the consumer out of the middle. It was trying to get transparency only. It failed to get the votes on the House floor. They took the bill that we sent over to them, stripped our bill out, and put that language basically on there again with another few lines, and we're not able to get it out for a vote. So this is the only vehicle currently to protect our consumers from these out-of-network bills. The Senate passed this bill out word for word, 52-0 earlier, and I would urge your favorable consideration. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. Any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? The chair hears none, and the question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none, the main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed by substitute. Ready? Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Resolution 346.
House Resolution 346 by Representative Tankersley, the 160th, and others, a resolution honoring the lives of Caitlin Baggett, Morgan Bass, Emily Clark, Abilene Deloach, and Catherine McKay Pittman, and dedicating a bridge in their memory and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Transportation offers the following substitute to House Resolution 346, a resolution dedicating certain portions of the state highway system and for other purposes. Amendment 1 by Senator James of the 35th and others offers the following amendment. Amend the Senate Committee on Transportation substitute to House Resolution 346 by inserting after line 493 the following. Whereas Dr. Eugene Edgar Thomas was born on May 14, 1928, and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 21st to speak to House Resolution 346.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. President. I just bring before you the annual road naming bill. The ads were run, and all road namings met GDOT requirements. If there are no questions, and I do not have a problem with the amendment from the senator from the 35th. So if there are no questions, I yield the well.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 35th to speak to her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, I offer this amendment. It was, it got into the Transportation Committee very late because we had to advertise, and by the time we did that, this other bill had already passed. It is to honor Dr. Eugene Thomas, who was born in 1928, and he passed away several years ago. He was a strong leader in that community. He was a former Boys Club person, as well as working with Atlanta Public Schools for 33 years. And he served as a lieutenant in the Army during the Korean War, and the list goes on. And I offer this, and it's right here in front of you, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak to the bill or the amendment? All right, we'll take up amendment number 1 first. The question is on the adoption of amendment number 1. Is there objection to adoption of the amendment? Chair hears none, and the floor amendment is adopted. Question now is on the adoption of the committee substitute as amended. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute as amended? The chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted as amended. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the adoption of the resolution by substitute? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall the resolution be adopted? Questions on the adoption of the resolution by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nays. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the adoption of the resolution, the yeas are 50, the nays are 0. The resolution has received the requisite constitutional majority and therefore is adopted by substitute. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 201?
House Bill 201 by Representatives Hogan of the 179th and others, a bill be titled enactment Title 52 of the OCGA relating to waters of the state ports and watercraft to authorize the Board of Natural Resources to promulgate rules and regulations regarding anchoring certain vessels within estuarine areas of the state, to authorize the Department of Natural Resources to establish anchorage areas and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 3rd to speak to House Bill 201. Oh, yeah. Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st to speak to House Bill 201.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 201 is another coastal bill. This has to do with the rivers in the coastal area, having to do with the liveaboard vessels and relating to the waste pertaining to that. This especially protects our environment that we're trying to cultivate on the coast relating to oysters and the habitats thereof. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll be asking for a favorable consideration.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous question's order. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question's ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The question's on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 45, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Ms. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 220.
House Bill 220 by Representatives Rogers of the 10th and others, a bill be titled enactment Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 8 of Title 12 of the OCGA relating to general provisions regarding solid waste management so as to extend the sunset date for certain solid waste disposal surcharges, to provide for the extension of the sunset date for certain tire disposal fees and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Finance offers the following substitute to House Bill 220. Bill be titled enactment Title 12 and 45 of the OCGA relating to conservation, natural resources, and public officers and employees, respectively, so as to reduce the amount of and extend the sunset date for certain solid waste disposal surcharges, to reduce the amount of and extend the sunset date for certain tire disposal fees, and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 19th to speak to House Bill 220.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 220 takes and changes the sunset date on the fee we charge for disposed tires and solid waste, moves it out to 2022. It also drops that fee substantially, drops it from 75 cents for the solid waste to 51 cents. It drops it on tires from $1 per tire down to 38 cents per tire. Mr. President, if there are no questions, I'll yield the will.
You have no questions.
Thank you.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the measure? Questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 45, the nays are 0. This bill having received the requisite constitutional majority, therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 118?
House Bill 118 by Representatives Morris of the 26th and others. A bill will be titled An Act to Amend Article 2, Chapter 10 of Title 16 of the OCGA relating to obstruction of public administration and related offenses, so as to revise the offense of transmitting a false alarm, to provide for the offense of making an unlawful request for emergency service assistance, and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary offers the following substitute to House Bill 118. A bill will be titled An Act to Amend Article 2, Chapter 10 Title 16 of the OCGA relating to obstruction of public administration and related offenses, so as to revise the offense of transmitting a false alarm, to provide for the offense of making an unlawful request for emergency service assistance, and for other purposes. That concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to speak to House Bill 118.
Mr. President and fellow senators, House Bill 118 sets punishment for the violation of what is commonly known as swatting, where individuals transmit a false alarm as a prank or joke, and which requires public safety resources to be dispatched. And this has led to deaths around the country and in Georgia. If there are no questions, I yield the well.
You had no questions. Any of the senators wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The questions on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. The committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Is there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass by substitute? The questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 43, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. Ms. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 134?
House Bill 134 by Representatives Rich of the 97th and others, a bill be titled and enacted in Chapter 15 of Title 36 of the OCGA relating to county law libraries so as to repeal a population provision regarding the disposition of law library funds in certain counties and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd to speak to House Bill 134.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, this bill simply does away with a population limitation that deals with county law libraries. It brings counties that have a population over 950,000 into the same procedure that applies to all other counties that have a board of trustees governing the law library and applying the funds that are collected from fines and fees. Mr. President, I'll be happy to yield for questions.
You have no questions.
Urge support for HB 134.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. Secretary will unlock the machine. Ben presented your bill, and it went down in flames. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 44, the nays are 3. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, please read the caption of House Bill 182.
House Bill 182 by Representatives Harold the 106th and others, a bill be titled and enacted in Article 1 of Chapter 8 of Title 48 of the OCGA relating to state sales and use tax so as to lower the threshold amount for certain dealers, to eliminate an option for certain retailers to choose to either collect and remit sales and use taxes or provide certain notifications to certain purchasers in the state and for other purposes. Mr. President, that concludes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 52nd to speak to House Bill 182.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we talked earlier, the Supreme Court decision happened last year. We had set a threshold of $250,000, trying to be conservative on where they would end up at, and actually it's $100,000 is what they decided was the economic nexus. This simply puts us in line with that federal decision, the same as all the other states are doing. If there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against the bill? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall the main question be now put? Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Shall this bill now pass? The questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 46, the nays are 2. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. We are going to stand at ease for 15 minutes. We're going to stand at ease for 15 minutes, and then we will reconvene. Thank you.